Today's episode's brought to you by Stoop Pizza.
It's high noon.
And welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. Trying to stay awake.
Yeah, we'll try to make this one a quick one, which means it'll probably be the longest one we've ever done.
Yep.
But man, we've got it's going to feel a little bit like an OG episode, maybe a little more free form, maybe a lot more tangents, because the sad reality of it is that Overwatch League Season 1 has come to an official end. There's no more matches to talk about, at least coming up matches for Season 1, with the exception of the All-Star game.
But today should be a good story time episode.
This is going to be a sit around the campfire and listen to the story of how we got to do the unthinkable, which is get invited to an event by Blizzard. But before we get into that, and yes, the Stoop Pizza has to you'll hear more about the Stoop Pizza in just a little bit. But before we get into that, let's talk about just the world of High Noon Productions and all the stuff that we're doing. Blackwatch Report, as always, chugging out episodes. Contenders is still alive and strong. I know they had a new episode this week. There's a sub. Sorry, future people, but thank you for the Twitch Prime sub during the show. If you want to be in the episode, no matter what.
Two of them, big fish.
Oh man, big fish in the house too.
Sub train.
The sub train starting. I'm certainly not gonna re-record. So if you guys want to be in the episode, get your Twitch Primes out. And you can do that at twitch.tv/HighNoonPodcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays, but today's Tuesday. Maybe Tuesday is the better day to do it. I don't know. But Blackwatch Report chugging out Contenders and Path to Pro content as always. I know earlier, he might actually still be live now, but Kyle Wynn, one of the hosts of Blackwatch Report, was doing some VOD review of the Envy match. So definitely check them out for the show, and then also they're streaming on their Twitch as well, doing some other content for Path to Pro. Taco has been at the finals with us, so no new episode for All Things Considered. Obviously no new episode for Around the Payload because we're at the grand finals, but next week there will be one. I had a lot of people either come up to me and say that they loved Around the Payload, or like ask me if I was the Around the Payload guy, like more so than any other show. Had people met a lot of ATP alumnists and people who I've been trying to get on the show that were like, now that the season's over, we've got lots of time, so wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I want to be on the show. Really amazing feedback from Around the Payload, so we are going to be getting that back and ready for action. And yeah, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And also, still in the world of High Noon Podcast, the meetup. We had the meetup, and boy, oh boy, it was great. We'll talk.
It was great, yeah. And it had every reason not to be. Like, so many things that could have gone wrong did absolutely 100% go wrong with the meetup, but nonetheless, the fans showed up. They made it a super, super good time. Wish we could have spent more time with absolutely everybody that showed up, but we'll get a little more into this.
We'll talk about the nitty gritty closer to the end of the show, but we're going to keep some semblance of an episode here and move on to my favorite segment.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
And what better a meme of the week than one that happened at the Overwatch League Grand Finals? That was, I'm just gonna put this one out, and if you guys have questions about it, can't answer them, and I'm not gonna answer them here. But the meme of the week is Uber laughing on the right before the DJ Khaled concert. I'm gonna play the clip here. It was in response to Malik. It was in response to Malik, Uber laughing, and Uber tweeted out, "If you don't know why I was laughing, I can't help you." And I'm giving the same exact answer. So just take a listen here.
Is coming up next, and we have an exclusive here at the Barclays Center. A hot set from DJ Khaled is going down. Stay tuned.
So yeah, that not much more needs to be said other than Malik wins the Overwatch League Grand Finals with that.
And and they don't call him Uber Eats for nothing.
Yeah, that also won. Yeah, it's a hard tie. It's a hard tie, but yeah, ask your older brother if you don't know what that one means, or sister. Okay. No, I'm not going to go down that line. Let's move on to the next segment before I bury myself even deeper here.
It's news.
Had a lot of news, actually, or maybe not a lot, but some big news here. And this, of course, is just what has been reported by ESPN, which I think has had a pretty good record of being almost entirely correct. So take that for what it's worth. But Atlanta, Paris, and Guangzhou, China have been reported by ESPN to be upcoming expansion teams for Overwatch League Season 2.
Yeah, really hype. We know there's a good number of French players in the Overwatch League, so it's going to be really great to see them represented as far as teams are concerned now as well. We've talked about a lot about how, especially moving on, getting closer to Season 3, the regionality, and when they're playing in their home stadiums, we need them to be more spread out. We need more teams in Europe, and we need them in Asia as well to kind of make the logistics of that work and be convenient and reduce some of the travel stress that would be on the players if they weren't able to do this. So all very big news. If you're a fan of Chinese Overwatch, I mean, now you've got the dream of the 0-80 season in Season 2, so we can keep that we can keep an eye on that, but no, also
bet on it though.
No, but Atlanta is a city I'm really excited about as far as U.S. cities go, because I know they've got a pretty decent esports following there. I think that's where Hi-Rez is based out of. So there's some already some video game traffic and knowledge going on over there. I know I play games from Omnic Labs over there. He's very excited that he's going to have a home team. So
we've got the place to stay when we go there.
Yeah, 100%. And it's let's just do grand finals in winter whenever we're going to Atlanta, because otherwise I don't know that I would go to that.
Yeah, God, it was well, we'll talk about the whole weekend in a little bit. I don't want to get off. I want to get off on tangents, but I want to do them all at once so that we can get the
structured tangents.
Yeah, structured tangents as well. But yeah, so Atlanta's a big one. The one thing is, like, I think there was a report, or I guess maybe not even a report, a rumor that 6 was the magic number of expansion teams this season, I think is what we're basing everything off of. So this is half the teams. You got to imagine maybe one more NA team, probably one more.
I think one from each region is the target. But again, that's all unconfirmed.
But that would be, I mean, that's tripling the number of EU teams, which, I mean, they need to do, right? But yeah, so that's interesting from that. But the other thought here is, like, Seattle for the other NA team, which is like, I mean, we're never going to get another team that's closer than, we're not going to get a team, but I mean me and you aren't going to get a team that's closer than 8 hours unless it's Toronto, which I think we'll get Seattle before we get Toronto. Probably. I mean, Toronto would be amazing. That would just be absolutely amazing. Maybe, and then maybe like a German team, a Sweden team, I don't know how. I don't know how, like, anything works in Europe, or like any part of that side of the world. So, like, is a Russia team, is that a thing that could happen? I have no idea. I know esports is pretty big in Russia, so.
Yeah, it's pretty big, but there was there was some visa issues. I think that was a good part of the reason why, like, Philly had problems. Fielding in the preseason was just getting everybody in legally by that time. So, but yeah, I think Germany is definitely one that's pretty high on my list. I mean, Paris was one I definitely thought of as well. I kind of in my head thought one in Paris and then one in like Cologne or Berlin or something like that. But we'll
Spain
have to wait
would
and
be
see.
a cool one, yeah.
Spain would definitely be cool. There's a lot of places that could do it.
Yeah, why don't you
For
just
sure
make it
in
like
Europe.
why don't you just make it like a tropical destination, have all grand finals there? Then
Yeah,
we will
because
get
it
then we will
wasn't warm enough in New York. But also, and then on the Asian side, I think
Yeah.
Busan kind of leads the cities for
Mhm.
likely locations for the next Korean team. So hopefully we get to see that. That
From
would
what I know
definitely be great.
about Korean geography, which is very little, Busan is like the only other like possibility.
I think there's a few, but
I
yeah, we'll have to. It's
legitimately don't know if that's the case.
right. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Not really too much value in speculating, other than just it's a little bit fun to talk.
Yeah, but it'll be even more fun when we get more stuff. That's what we do need to save some of this stuff for the off season. But next piece of news we have here is we got some viewership numbers from Overwatch League Grand Finals. Blizzard reported that the Overwatch League. Let's see. Yes. Blizzard's now released the global average concurrent for the event, meaning the Overwatch League Grand Finals, which they say it reached over 860,000.
Yeah, that's not peak numbers. That is the average of how many people were watching at any given time throughout the course of the finals.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, there's been a lot of talk about those numbers, and I've heard kind of arguments, or maybe not arguments, but I've heard comments on both sides of it of like, oh, this was a failure, or oh, this was really good. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it, Death, just because I have an opinion of what this means, and for Overwatch and for esports. Notably, I believe the numbers from like ESPN specifically, or maybe it was ESPN and ABC or whatever, like combined, was like 300K.
Yeah, but I think that was demographic specific, and that was like
might have been.
18 to 30 or something. Like it's definitely tough to say, and we'll hopefully get a full report on that, and we'll be able to kind of dive a little deeper into it later. But
Yeah.
overall, I think this was great. You look at these numbers, and you have to think that the presence on television really boosted the numbers a good amount. So it was great that they got that in when they did. But I also think, it leaves room for improvement, which is important too, right? Like we want to see season 2 be better and continue to improve. And maybe when they're covering the regular season a little bit, you know what I mean?
Right.
And people are a little bit more aware that it's going to happen ahead of time, and they've got more time to get into it. Maybe we can boost these numbers up even more.
Right.
We've seen other esports, Counter-Strike in particular, top these numbers. Those games have been going for how long? You know what I mean? There's
Right.
a lot of reasons for that. But overall, I think this exceeds the expectations from what people were predicting and what they were saying. So I'm very happy with these numbers. Really, really pumped. I was getting text messages while sitting in the arena about my parents sitting at home watching ESPN, and I saw you. Your beard gave you away. It was a really, really great experience. I think I want to sit down and ask my dad and talk to him a little bit. I haven't gotten to do that yet since I got home. Were you able to follow it? Did you have any idea what was going on? I'm definitely curious in that aspect of it. But as far as just sheer numbers go, I think this is great. It's a really good opening season number to hit.
Yeah, I think considering a couple of factors, not the least of which is that we didn't know it was going to be on any of these television channels until a day or 2 days before the playoffs started.
It was the day of.
It might have been the day. It may have even been the day of. So like, if they announced like the World Championship for curling tomorrow and it happened that night, how many people are going to watch it? No idea.
Bunch of Canadians, but outside that.
Right. And like people are like, oh, well, it only had 300K on ESPN. That's way lower for that time frame. It's way lower than E-League got on TBS, and way lower than the World Championship for League of Legends. It's like, yeah, well, those events were probably were E-League was a whole league, so there was weeks leading up to it, where like
Mhm.
if you started in the weeks before, it's like, oh, this is a regular season match. Oh, maybe I'll watch this, or maybe I won't. Or you get 3 or 4 times where you're in front of your TV at 10 p.m. Maybe you start watching it, and then you get into it, and then you want to watch the finale of it. Like that's just how like stories work. you
You get
dragged
invested
into
by
it.
time spent throughout the
Right.
season.
You don't want to
Yeah.
watch Law and Order SVU if you're only going to watch the court case at the end. Like you only watch it if you're invested from the beginning. Like
Right.
why would anyone watch the ending? Why would anyone watch the ending, just the ending of Westworld, and none of the stuff at the beginning?
Right.
That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is like, I don't actually care how many people watched on TV, because that's not the target demographic, and B, that's 300,000 people who are watching, or roughly, that are watching, that weren't going to watch it if it was just on Twitch.
Right.
So that's just plus 300,000. I don't care
Yeah,
if it could have been higher.
crazy.
Great. Yeah. It's all like, and this is me not knowing how much these rights cost, how much anything, like any of the business side of it. Like, I don't care. From my perspective, it's like, if you're like, hey, we're gonna show it on TV, you'll get 300K extra people. Yeah, sure, do it every single time. There's actually, and I'll put it in the description. There's an article that Paul Challoner, aka Red Eye, who is part of the London Spitfire in some aspect, but he's also like a Dota 2 and CS:GO caster, wrote an article about the numbers and the viewership numbers, and I think I agree with a lot of the points he made. So definitely take a look at that. But like, it's not like, I don't think esports is moving in the direction, and Overwatch League is moving in the direction where like our end goal is to be a normal thing on ESPN. I hope that's not the case, because I don't, or on TV, because I don't think that's like Henry Ford building a really fast horse instead of trying to build a car, or like investing really heavily in radio when TV comes out, which is something that Red Eye brought up in his article. But I think I might actually write an article kind of talking about this, depending on how I'm going to try to like parse it out and see if I can get a decent enough article on it, and maybe I'll post that on the website. But yeah, I just think I mean, these talks are really interesting. Maybe we can get some people on the High Noon Hot Seat. Now that I think about it, I got to write down some stuff and reach out to some people. But definitely a really interesting, definitely a huge talking point right now for Overwatch League. In my,
You hear that, Manny call? We're coming for you. We're coming.
Yeah,
Watch your inbox.
amongst other people as well. But yeah, I think in my opinion, it's a success. Could it have been better? Yeah, they also could have advertised the event way better, and marketed it way better. But that's neither here nor there. I guess it is kind of here or there, but yeah. But that is going to be it for the news here. Let's move on. And for the last time in Season 1 for Overwatch League, let's move on to...
It's tournament talk.
Man, there's really not much more to say about the tournament talk than, oh, bad Philly's back again.
Yeah, they really kind of it was a little disappointing. I mean, we were going in, neither of us were. Well, you were a little more invested in Philly than I was. They're kind of like your number two, like the Gladiators were for me.
Yeah.
So it was a little disappointing. You know, they really came out kind of flat. I thought strategically they were a bit of a letdown. And then individual performance wise, you know, when we went through the match breakdown and we talked about this matchup, we talked about Prophet and Carpe being near a push, you know, not really being anything decisive there, that they were both, you know, carry DPSs for their team. And Carpe was very much so invisible for a good portion of the match. He absolutely got blown out in this particular position battle, for a player that's incredibly clutch in individual matches throughout the entire season. You know, even when the team was inconsistent and not performing well, Carpe was there. He was in the kill feed. He was popping off, and it's just not the case here. And it was a little bit disappointing to see. Also, EQO, I don't know that he disappeared or didn't show up so much as he got contained and countered and you know, was was beaten up, but he was a little quiet as well. There was some odd situations. I think it was Eichenwald where he like held his barrage on Farah for a million years and then like cast it in his own face and killed himself. And so there was some rough spots there as well for Philadelphia. Let's be honest. Poco showed up. Poco was an absolute beast.
When I'm looking at the alts for Philly, and I'm like, man, we've got a shot if Poco has a Poco bomb, because so many times he'd get 2 or 3 Ks and just turn the fight around. Sometimes it didn't matter because like the rest of Philly just kind of crapped the bed. But there were like I don't even know how many times it happened where Poco just like out of nowhere gets a 3K and all of a sudden Philly's back in this fight.
Yeah, he was huge, and I really think it just helps underline the question marks that we've been asking for a while now about Philly and their tank line. What's the best way to go? Sato was beaten across the board by Gesture, who was kind of my personal MVP of the match. He was just had a really tough time, and it didn't seem to matter who was in. I was talking strategically about some of the problems they were having, in the first match in particular, and I don't want to bash Philly for this too much, right? They had a plan, it didn't work.
They already lost. They can't. I mean, you can't get more.
Right.
Worse, right?
But so they play the first map and they win it on the first day, and everything's looking great. And then Boombox gets subbed out, and they bring in Hotba, and then they go into, I think that was the Eichenwald match. And it was just really kind of crazy to me that they brought him in, right? Not that they brought him in here in this situation, but it was really, really fast that London was able to counter the composition that Philly was trying to run and force Hotba back onto the Zenyatta. Hotba doesn't play Zenyatta. They just subbed out their Zenyatta player and put him on the bench. And then, I don't think Hotba came out, and I don't think Boombox came back in the entirety of the rest of the way. I mean, it was 3 straight losses with that particular lineup out there. It was really, really frustrating as somebody sitting in the stands rooting for Philly. Like, why is this happening? It just, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't think Hotba had the best performance. He certainly, as Tracer, didn't live up to what it was that one time he flashed in the in the playoffs when he ran it, stuff like that. So it was really, really interesting to kind of see them do that, and I was really upset about it. But on the next day they came back out and they didn't run that anymore. So credit to them. They had a plan. They got punched in the mouth. They went back into the room. They came out with a different plan and they tried to execute it. And I would have been really upset if they would have just kept doing it over and over again and it just continued to fail, because to me, you don't do that. It was a little bit the story of day one for me, but they tried something else. And at the end of the day, we, as we said before, and we touched on a little earlier, this team goes as far as Carpe carries them. Their DPS core was the biggest letdown for Philadelphia. So I'm not going to sit here and harp too much on what the tanks and the supports weren't able to do, and the substitutions, because they weren't closely contested enough when I thought the questionable substitutions were out there to really think that maybe it would have made a huge difference. I mean, it would have given them a better chance. Maybe they steal one more map, and you steal one more map on day one, and it could have been an entirely different series, because you wouldn't have felt beaten and dejected. You would have, okay, we lost, but it was close. We got this. We can come back. More to build off of, sort of thing. So it was really, really, like I said, frustrating, but kind of understandable. They wanted to do something a little different, and it backfired on them. It's a time to pull out all the stops, but I wanted them to recognize it a little bit during day one and switch off of the triple tank lineup and put Boombox out there. After all, his Roadhog was pretty good. I'm not going to sit here and parse who was better between the two of them, because it wasn't great from either side at any point here. But and then, some other things here. You want to go through the other things we got on the list for the notes?
Yeah, so I think at a macro level, it was Philly had weaknesses, but London did not seem to have a single weakness whatsoever. And I think I can't remember who it was. It may have been one of the casters, but someone mentioned London has had experience. Actually, I think I was talking with Semler outside. I don't know if it was Semler. It doesn't matter who it was. I was talking with someone, and they were saying London has had the experience. Like they've played at Apex and they've played like in these like high pressure situations, and like with a relatively big crowd. And I think the players kind of got used to the Blizzard Arena and like how that feels and like what the atmosphere is there. It's like you play at home every game of the season and then you go and you play at a different place, even if it's like arguably a Philly crowd. Like I can't even imagine what it's like walking out onto that stage for the first time and hearing the roar of the crowd, seeing it. It's like you could tell some of those players like it really got to them. Even like Golden Boy, like when he was up there, like he was amazing, but like you can tell like it's just like it was like a completely different experience than any of them were ever used to.
I mean, we never got to the stage in LA to really compare it there, but how did it compare? You were at the World Cup. I mean, was there much comparison at all? What did it feel like between the two?
A little bit, but the tournament I don't think is as it's certainly much smaller at the World Cup. It's definitely, it might be like have been louder just because like the World Cup is like it's a much smaller areas and there's like still a lot of people screaming, but it's probably, I couldn't even tell you how many fewer chairs are at the World Cup. Also, the like kind of the feel of the World Cup is different because like World Cup, the bare hands of staying the World Cup stage at BlizzCon is more intimidating than the Blizzard Arena, sure, but I don't think more intimidating than the Barclays Center. It's just it was on another level. But yeah, so I think that was part of it. Like you said, Carpe, he just wasn't there. I think he obviously didn't have an amazing performance like he really needed to have, and like even if you take some of those things, like if London also had like a suboptimal performance, they may have had a match, but London was like a well-oiled machine. It was insane, for sure. EQO, like you mentioned, felt like he got countered, and like when Carpe's not there and EQO is getting countered, like you really need either your tanks or your supports to step up. Didn't happen. Again, I don't remember who I was talking to, but I think it was someone in the press was saying that Sato was like just wasn't able to communicate appropriately, and was like trying to do dives that the rest of the team wasn't doing. So that's why we saw Sato like randomly dying at a lot of places and being like, why is Sato over here like on top of a building and getting killed when the rest of the team is on the payload? Like,
well, if only they had a tank that had played, the whole season with the team and spoke the same language as everybody. It would have been crazy. But I will never forgive Philly for the fraggy disrespect there. No matter how it had played out, to be perfectly honest, I would have never been. Because we got to meet and hang out with Fraggy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of fragging.
Yeah, and it looked, I got the impression he spotted us like as we walked in the door. And like made eye contact with us and got a big smile on his face. So Fraggy will forever have a place in my heart for recognizing us and knowing we were gonna walk. Basically, we made eye contact. It was like, well, might as well just walk straight up to Fraggy right now.
He was the first one we got, and we talked to EQO as well on the media day, and the impression that we got from him is like he was like the consummate like professional athlete. Like his attitude
it felt like
exactly
we were interviewing an athlete when we were talking to EQO. The way he had that kind of the confidence and the swagger, but also he was very together. He was very well spoken. He seemed like the team had a really good plan. He seemed like he was bought into the plan. Honestly, I left that interview, and now to be fair, we couldn't talk to the London guys because their interpreters had disappeared and they were just sitting at a table by themselves.
And we also later that day found out that interviewing through an interpreter is just not the same experience.
No. But yeah, it was just kind of crazy to see that disconnect, right? Between like he looked uncomfortable on the stage, but yet everything about it, like the lead up, the ramp up, all that stuff, like he handled that like a pro. So, props to him either way. Even if the team lost, right? Like we said, I do feel like London countered him more than he kind of just failed to show up. So, we could have been 100% right. He could have been just absolutely ready, and he just wasn't getting the support he needed from the rest of his team. We'll never know because we don't get to run it back with the other team, with the rest of the team playing well. But yeah, so it was, props to everybody there from Fusion. I think those were the 2 Fusion players we got to speak to. So
yeah, that was great. But yeah, I mean, everything else, like, it just seemed like Philly was a little off, and like, not only that, but London was like at peak performance. It seemed.
Yes.
They just seemed.
Yes.
I kind of want to see like top level NYXL play against that London and see what happens in that match. Like that.
Yeah, maybe not in that meta, because I've got to say,
there's no real way you could do it, because.
I'll never get over how good Gesture played this weekend, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Absolutely insane.
The man is very clearly, to me, the best Orisa in the league. And now we haven't seen as much Orisa as we saw from him this weekend as we have from most of the other guys.
Yeah.
But though he just seemed to, I mean, it was just constantly more productive than Sato when he was on that role.
Doing crazy things. Like his halts felt like ultimates.
They were gravitons.
They were mini gravitons.
They were.
Because of the 100%. Coordination with the rest of the team. It's like, there's a diva bomb. Oh, that's not going to get anybody. Oh my God, he used halt to pull them out from behind the payload into a diva bomb. Absolutely insane, and at the perfect time. Oh, and then the one on Junkertown on
Grav, the dragon.
Was it Halt, or maybe it was Grav that pulled?
No, it was Halt into
Dragon.
They got him like 3 in a diva mech, and then
insane.
Like the other 2 jumped in there to not feed ultimate charge.
Oh my God! It was like watching one. It was like watching one person like be able to communicate through 6 people and just play like simultaneously, like as one cohesive unit. It was absolutely insane. Even though the match itself was very one-sided, it was amazing to see London play at that type of performance. If they had played that way that whole season, I think, like, man, people would not, like, NYXL would not have done what they did if London was playing like that whole the whole season.
Yeah, or at least there would have been one team a little closer to them. London definitely seemed to kind of get things together at the right time. Obviously,
maybe they were sandbagging. Has anyone ever posited that?
Starting stage 2, we're gonna ride it. Yeah, it was a little different to see kind of the way they played. I do think Birdring was still kind of not. He wasn't old Birdring again. Like, we're still wondering, to me, when he's coming back. He was solid. He didn't get, but there wasn't pressure, right? Like, if EQO wasn't being countered as hard by the tanks, and if Carpe was doing work, I think it would have been a little more apparent that Birdring had a kind of a suboptimal performance, at least compared to his past.
But the thing is like, it doesn't seem like Birdring did that much because Gesture and Prophet killed everyone. Like there's only so much left to mop up at that point, right?
I mean, fair enough, but at the end of the day, like, he made a couple plays here and there, but he was pretty quiet for the most part. And if you're playing well, I mean, that's the idea, right? Like, you want them both to be popping off. You want them to be shared to an extent, and I thought it was a little one-sided in that.
Gesture.
Right.
That was the real conversation, I think, for MVP. I mean,
yes. Definitely.
I
thought Bedosin played well, but just not at the same level of those 2. And
I think like
same with Fury.
Right. I mean, they all played well. I mean, even Nuss played well. But like, you give Kobe the MVP, right? Like, he gets the MVP, or LeBron gets the MVP. Like, even if like the support player, like supporting player, not the actual support player.
I don't tell it to Jonak with his season MVP.
Jonak goes above and beyond it. The Jonak quotient can't be factored in here because he's not a human. You can't. It's hard to give. Like, he's literally an Omnic. So
yeah,
it's tough. But yeah, I think like the level 1, like, give the MVP to Prophet. But I think a lot of people would argue. I think there's a very good argument to be had to give Gesture that MVP.
Yeah, I would have been giving it to him had I had a vote. But to kind of put some of the numbers in perspective here, we've got Profit. This is in the second match. I don't have combined numbers between them, but in the second day, Profit had 35 kills and 14 deaths. So he was plus 21 there. And when we look at Carpe, he was 22 kills and 20 deaths. So he was only plus 2. Obviously, a very big difference there. Kill death from Gesture was 22 and 21. So obviously that's you'd like to see better. And I think when you look at stats, it's a little misleading. But when you look on the other side, you've got Sato at 15 kills and 30 deaths. So you can definitely see when you line them up side by side and look at the comparison that it was definitely a one-man show there. So yeah, there was just a lot to be said here. And we talked about EQO wasn't necessarily shut down so much as countered. He was actually less than Carpe as far as kills go. He was 19 kills, 23 deaths. Birdring was 27 and 14. So similar death numbers, but just Profit, was just out of this world. And it's worth noting, going into the playoffs, especially, we talked about this, some players are made for the intense moments in the stage. And Bare Hands pointed out in chat, Gesture and Profit have still never lost a tournament in in a tournament format like that. And those two, Profit in particular, I know the last Apex final absolutely blew up and shredded the opponent. I don't have his stats handy, but he was just absolutely dominant in that finals. I don't know that there's anybody more clutch than Profit, and I don't think he bothers to tap into that clutchness unless there's at least 500 grand on the line. Like, I think that's his deal, right? Like it's got to be big money. We're not going to see him do that, regularly in your stage playoffs or even a winning it in the regular season to make the stage playoffs. It's got to
be Balenciaga money, or else he's not even getting out of his chair.
But you put him in front of a ridiculous number of people at the Barclays Center, and the man is going to not care at all. And in fact, feed off of that energy. And that's something that I think is absolutely invaluable. And I'll say this again, and it's a conversation we'll have in the coming weeks as we turn our attention to the All-Star game and the World Cup. It is a travesty that the man is not in the All-Star game. It's just an absolute snub and a disrespect move to not put him in there, to be perfectly honest with you. Especially when Birdring's there, and it's very clear to me who's the better between the two of them. But yeah, he's not. I don't think he's in the World Cup either. I mean, it doesn't make sense. He was in my MVP conversation. He was one of the few people that I was willing to mention in the same breath as Jonak. And I just don't understand why it's been kind of unnoticed how good he's been despite the struggles of the team. But he certainly transcended, played at a whole new level this past weekend.
Yeah, and to put a bow on this, Monkey Prince brings us a stats here. It says, according to Winston's Lab, Profit in the Apex finals, so that was best of 5. So I don't remember how many matches it was, but Profit was 134 kills to 55 deaths, so plus 79 KDA.
Yeah. Absolutely out of this world performances. The last 2 times a championship has been on the line from this kid.
I mean, that's the Kobe quotient, right? Like that's what you need and want from a player. But yeah, so let's move on here, and we are going to talk about the weekend as a whole, kind of go through what we went through.
Story time?
It's story time. This is going to be one of the sections where I'll put out a disclaimer. If all you want to hear about is stats and Overwatch League specific playing stuff, the rest of the episode is not for you. This is like for the fan part and mostly for us too. So we'll kind of open it up a little bit more. If people have like questions in the chat, we'll be a little bit more interactive on this part. But so I mean, we're still doing it. So
let's break it down.
We're breaking it down the weekend in and of itself. So it started off for me on Tuesday as I got in a couple of days early. I was on vacation in North Carolina the week before, just like unrelated to Overwatch League. So I was sunburned and tired and hadn't been at my house for a week. and drove 14 hours from North Carolina to New York City. So that was great. Um, on Tuesday and Wednesday, actually, I was in the city pretty much by myself. And there was a couple of Five Deadly Venoms events. And shout out to the Five Deadly Venoms, which, if you're unfamiliar, I mean, where have you been? Like we've had Great Root Bear on around the payload. He's the one that started Five Deadly Venoms. It was basically the like grassroots fan made fan I guess for lack of a better word, fan club for NYXL based in New York City. Finally got to meet those guys. They had a couple events on Tuesday and Wednesday that I went to, which was great. Super cool. Met a lot of people that have listened to the show.
The hospitality of the Five Deadly Venoms guys.
Insane.
It was out of this world. I mean, I've never thought in my life I would attend like a rave dedicated to video games, but nonetheless, there I was in Times Square, watching arcade cabinets set up, watching videos of Overwatch being played, AKM, Pine, like just players everywhere, just all over the place.
Yeah. Jonak. Saw Jonak and the Balenciagas in real life. It was great.
Yeah. And honestly, they had every reason to be, people were worried about how is it going to be. All those people, all those New York fans bought tickets and now their team's not in it.
Right.
They were just as loud and screaming as everybody else. They had every reason to be a little upset or a little salty or a little down. They did not for even a second let it get to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they would have loved to see New York there, but they were still absolutely just phenomenal hosts, going out of their way to make sure people that were Overwatch fans that came nearby, were able to enjoy themselves and have something to do in the days leading up to it. And just a big thanks to the Great Root Bear and everybody else involved that help put on those events and help make everybody feel welcome and keep everybody entertained. It was great, and they were absolutely present in the arena. I can vouch for it myself. I could see them from where I sat through every map. They were screaming as loud as everybody else. They were super pumped, super into it. Maybe like 20 minutes, Blevin says. So he's thought he was muted, but he wasn't muted, and now he's
I was muted for you. I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. But yeah, so just a big thank you to everybody from the Five Deadly Venoms. Even literally, Root Bear, I'm like, man, I've been trying to find a bodega that can sell me a bandana just so I can a sweat rag basically.
Yeah.
And Great Root Bear like zips open his backpack and he's like, here you go. Like I've got a Five Deadly Venoms one right here. So, I mean, literally above and beyond they went and it was great to, meet all those guys, everything like that. So.
Yeah, that was amazing. And then there was the pop-up stores, which were on Friday and Saturday, which I waited in line for way too long, but I did get this awesome red hat, among other things, at the pop-up store, which was really cool. I think that like the whole idea of the pop-up store it's just really cool to me. Like that whole like culture of like, I think it's more of it's like a city thing, right? It's usually for like sneakers, I think, and like other stuff like that. Like it's a thing. The store's only open for 2 days, and we've got exclusive stuff, and like I just love that type of thing. Like I love the exclusives. I love the evolution of like the merch into something that's more like stylized rather than like, oh, everything is the same exact, Meta Threads jersey, and like that's the extent of esports merch. That's the extent of merch that you get is like the official Overwatch jerseys and but like I really like that they're pushing it more, and like just at a high level, like the grand finals felt much more like NBA-esque than any other sport, like very like hip hop feel, that like kind of like cool like style, like everything is kind of like fashion forward. I don't know if that's the right word, but like very like the players wear like insanely expensive shoes. It's just not
come on,
that
old
culture.
man, just call it hip. Just call it. It was hip.
Hip.
It was cool.
It is hip.
It was down. It was so
DJs,
down.
There were DJs at the like multiple different DJs, not including DJ Khaled, at the event, like playing music the whole time. It wasn't like a metal concert. Like the feel of it was very was chosen very specifically.
That's very true, and in spite of all that, it was a really, really good time.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
so,
I was gonna say, I think this is where I get
where
here.
you
roughly
where
at
you
this
get
time.
here,
Yeah.
yes.
So I worked all day Wednesday because I needed time off for BlizzCon still, and so so I woke up at 7 a.m. there, and at midnight that night, I'm like, oh, I'll sleep on the bus. It'll be fine. I board my bus. I go there, and it took me about 3 seconds after stepping on the bus to realize I don't fit on buses, not even a little bit. Shout outs to the tiny little Indian dude that sat next to me. Poor guy. But yeah, so I got no sleep on the way out, and my bus lands. I meet up with Blevins. We get a quick bite to eat, and we were basically straight to the arena for all the media day festivities. And it was so on zero sleep. Like I literally was 40 hours of being awake, walking around New York City, the second half of it, doing interviews, things like that. So I was absolutely exhausted, but honestly, like didn't feel it until basically we were at the Five Deadly Venoms thing in Times Square. And I was just like, Blevins, dude, I can't do this. And I'm like sitting in a corner there because I'm just like, I'm done. Like I was even worried about like walking outside to get to an Uber or something to get out of there. It was crazy. But yeah, so we had the media day stuff. It started with the interviews with the Philly and London, but like we said, they didn't have their interpreters around when we were there. We also got to sit down with Uber and Sideshow as well. All these interviews that we're talking about, by the way, there's going to be it's not up there yet, is it?
I got the live stream video up.
Gotcha.
So we've got some of the interviews are up on YouTube now. Most of them are up on either YouTube or Twitter, but they're all going to be put to Twitter soon.
Okay. Yes. They'll be. Well, I think we want to get them up on YouTube too as well.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're all going to be up on YouTube soon.
Okay.
DM.
Gotcha. Yeah. So all these you can find soon on YouTube. But yeah, so we got to talk to those two, the casters, which was great. We got to meet Monty. That was when we met Mark Van Lommel, everything like that. Then things kind of shifted, and we were into talking to the players from teams that weren't involved in the final still, and that was
ambassadors.
Yeah, that was Raucous, that was Sinatra, that was Swoosh, Note, Custa, AKM, who we didn't actually get to sit down and talk to because he'd stepped away when we were making our way across the line there. Then Bishu, Dia, SBB, and then that's SBB's interpreter. So that was the end of the line. And we did not get much.
Yeah, but we didn't get. We had to cut the SBB interview short because we were getting shepherded out, and we didn't get to interview Jae Hong, unfortunately. So just a whole lot of fun, and that was cool because we got to kind of see the actual press conference room, everything like that. So if you go watch any video of the after press conferences, it was 2 days before or 1 day before we were in there talking to all the players. So that was really great to get to see. And then after that was the meetup, or not the meetup, the mixer for the influencers or whatever the access invited
type that we
guests.
had. The invited guests all got to do a mixer. That was really cool because notably we got to sit down and hang out with Eddie the Chump and Frito from Your Overwatch. Spent a good amount of time with them. Also One Against Many was there as well. Got to sit down and hang out with him a bunch. Chan Man was there. Yeah, we're going to miss people when we do shout outs, and our apologies for that. We were absolutely floored to meet all you guys, but Fish Sticks was definitely there. Harblue was there.
I'm blank. Emong.
Emong, yep. So got to hang out with a lot of known streamers, things like that, as well during that as well. Somebody, I don't even. Should we tell the story about the guy that threw something off the roof at us while we were there?
Why not?
Oh my god! So we're sitting there, and I'm like in mid sentence, and I just stopped talking because I see like a log like would be in a campfire, right? Like that you'd put in a campfire, was just fell from the sky and hit the awning over the bar where like 3 or 4 people were standing immediately underneath it. And I'm just my jaw dropped, and I'm like, what happened? And I look up, and there's just this dude leaning over the roof and just waving at us. after he threw from, they had like 20, 25 stories down below. He just chucked this this log down into the mixer. It just bounced off the awning. Thankfully nobody was hurt. It just completely missed everything by hitting that awning, which was an absolute blessing. But I was just absolutely stunned by that. Be careful when you go to big cities, folks. There's nutbags out there.
There's craziness that happens there. But yeah, the media day as a whole was awesome. We talked about it in the pre-show, but when we first got in there, or when we were first walking up, we're about to go up the elevator, and we hear someone stop us. And it was Mark Von Lommel, who you may recognize from the High Noon Podcast Discord, but also may recognize because he's the director of PR for Overwatch League. And he goes, "Wait a second, two big bearded guys. This is High Noon Podcast, isn't it?" And it's like, oh man, that's awesome. So that was like the first taste of like people recognizing us at all. Besides people who like actually knew us before, which was awesome. So shout outs to Mark for inviting us. Shout outs to Josh, the community manager for Overwatch, who basically was our like camp counselor, like chaperone the whole weekend.
The amount of accessibility we had to him was kind of crazy. It was, that weekend for him was not about watching the match. It was about making sure that our group had the best time possible, and he absolutely succeeded.
Also, apparently, like a bunch of other things too, because I was talking when we were walking in before. I was like, when we first got into the Barclays Center, like on Friday, I talked to him and I'm like, so this has got to be kind of a surreal experience, right? He's like, man, I'm so busy with like all sorts of things going on and fixing things that I can't even soak it in. I'm like, oh man, that's depressing. But you're also doing a fantastic job, so keep doing that.
Right. It's people like that make all these things go so smoothly, and it's just it's a completely an unsung hero situation. So we want to do our part to big thank you
to
Josh.
Sing that song. So media day was awesome. Met a ton of people, like saw a bunch of people and saw a bunch of ATP alumnists, which was awesome. And then also just met a bunch of new people, which is always fun as well. Moving on to Friday, the first match of the grand finals. I mean, the match itself was,
we covered that.
We covered that. We don't need to talk
a blast. Honestly, it was
amazing to be there.
Yes. Considering it wasn't, tightly contested, everything like that, I think it exceeded my hopes for what kind of the hype would be. Being in the stadium, that's, especially that size, it was just all around a great experience in the arena as well. If you're looking for us and you want to see us on the VODs, anytime they show the casters, so on the first day it was Uber and Mr. X, we're in between them. I'm the first day I'm wearing like a light button down. But you can totally see us, and I turn around on more than one occasion and ham it up for the camera a little bit. So yeah, if you can spot us in the crowd, take a screenshot or whatever, drop it in Discord, and we'll laugh at how stupid or whatever when we were making a funny face.
Yeah, we're not like right there.
No, it's hard to see, right? It's like Where's Waldo when you're like looking in the back left corner of the thing. It's not, we're not like featured, but we're there.
Also, if you see any pictures of people taking pictures of the player ambassadors, we were in the row next to them, so we're in the background of some of those pictures as well. But I think the real highlight for Friday was the meetup, because man, that went better than I ever expected it to, and it should on paper have went way worse. So multiple like bad things happened, or we found out all kind of at once. So it was raining pretty much all day on Friday, and not just like kind of drizzling, like literally there were flash flood warnings.
Yeah, shout outs to anybody that didn't get there. I know there were people in our Discord that literally didn't even make it to the first day of matches because of the flooding and everything that was going on. Like there was some really bad weather, and it's funny, around here we get like those warnings, like flash flood warnings, and I don't think once has it ever happened. Like maybe like a river or something nearby, like its banks over floods, but it doesn't ever impact anybody unless you live next to it.
Right.
And here it was like you get the warning, and then like 5 minutes later, somebody's like walking through the door of the hotel complaining about how bad traffic was because three major roads are blocked off because they're completely flooded and everything like that. So absolutely craziness there. But yeah, the rain actually also at the meetup broke the lights. Yeah. So we had this like beer garden outside, and everything was soaked. So all the benches were wet, and you couldn't really. At the end of the night, people were just sitting down because it was such a long day. You didn't care if you got a little wet, but none of the lights worked on the outside, so we were like all standing around in the dark, in the basking in the glow of the bar area that was just inside. But nonetheless, the crowd showed up. Everybody came. The Your Overwatch guys put out on their Twitter that they were going to be there as well. So they had some of their people show up. Obviously Bob and Andres and iPlay were there. Yep. So they had some of their fans show up, but we had a lot come. Not going to try to go down the list because there's no way we'll remember them all.
A ton of people.
Even a lot of people too, even like not even in Discord. I'm like, oh, are you in the Discord? And I needed to just stop asking that because I felt like I was making them feel bad for not being in there. Like, no, I just listen. I thought I'd stop by and see you guys. So yeah, it was just again, I don't want to go down a list and try to name everybody because that just means I will forget more than I remember, and I don't want to do that because it was just great to meet absolutely everybody that showed up. We read positive comments on iTunes that we like beg you guys for every week, and like we get goosebumps on our arms and things like that. But this was a whole different level of craziness to just have people, walk and talk to us and about the old content we put out. There were people picking on you about your match ticker a little bit.
I was so sad. I was so sad.
But yeah, it was absolutely great to meet everybody. The stories about how when we used to have our audio problems, how they were like driving with their hand on the volume knob, so that way when I was talking, they could lower it. When Levins was talking, they could crank it back up.
Those are the
and
true
still get to hear
fans.
the show.
Those are the true fans.
The true MVPs, absolutely. So big thank you to everybody that showed up and tipped the bartender so that she'd stay open as late as she did, which was great.
On top of all that, it was actually supposed to close at like what, 10:30 or no? It's supposed to close
11:30.
11:30.
So you're gonna get like an hour.
An hour maybe, but she stayed until like 1:30, which was great.
Yeah, she was great.
So shout out.
Thanks to the bartender who thought the fact that people showed up for a podcast meetup was just the weirdest thing ever. So there's no way she's listening. Nonetheless, thanks, bartender lady. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to mention about the meetup is that we, at least for me, it was the first time, but I think for the first time for both of us, we had we were asked for our autograph.
Yes, that happened. Yeah, it was weird.
It was awesome.
Not only that, showed up with a replica of the coin that we started with. Like had the Blevins coin replica, and our it was we'll give him a shout out since he asked, but it was Lysome. I think I'm saying it wrong. Brought in his version of the coin, wanted us to sign it. My apologies for the chicken scratch that I put on your coin, but I don't know if you've ever tried to sign a coin. But it was strange from two reasons. A, I've never written on a coin before, and that coin is very ridgy and very difficult to write on. And also, I've never tried to sign Deathblow before. I don't know that I've ever written it down. See, I think you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just
I don't know what you mean because my name I future-proofed myself. I future-proofed myself. Got there. Yeah.
I finally recognized a reason for your IGN.
Think about it. Think about it.
Yeah. So an absolute, like, just kind of one of those weird experiences that above and beyond being recognized or having people come up and be fans of the show. That was definitely a crazy experience as well.
I'm like, someone comes up to me and they're like, "Do you have a pen?" And I'm like, "Fresh out, man. This is after a couple of drinks as well." And he's like, I'm like, "What do you need a pen? I can try to get one from the bartender." He's like, "No, I kind of need like a marker." I'm like, "Are you trying to draw a mural or something?" And he's like, "No, I want your autograph." And I'm like, I think I literally did that.
I guess I'll stop making fun of you then.
I have like one like mode when people come up and talk to me and I don't know who they are. It's just immediately be sarcastic.
Yeah, and I was a little disappointed because when he asked me, do you have a Sharpie? I go, no, I don't, unfortunately. I go, maybe we can ask the bartender, and somebody's just like, shing, I got one right here. Here you go.
That
so
person
I was able
disappeared for forever because I didn't.
Yeah,
like, he asked me, and
I was able to sign it right away. And then when they was looking for you, I yelled, anybody got a Sharpie? Where's my guy with a Sharpie? He was gone. So I thought I was going to be the only one to give an autograph of the two of us. I was going to pick on you for that.
Yeah, you're gonna love
but then he tracked you down on day 2 and got it anyways. So I'm glad he got to do that. But I will always lament the loss of that joke.
We're both on the coin, and I'm on heads, by the way.
Yeah, but tails never fails.
Yeah, but I drew a beard on the front of the Spartan.
That was a good call. That was a good call.
I drew a beard on the Spartan, so he's got the true coin. It's a combination of the coin that I have and the beard coin. But yeah, so that was just amazing. And to top off, actually this wasn't even the same night, was it? Or no, maybe it was.
The Stoop?
Was the Stoop the same night?
It was 30 minutes. So anybody at the meetup, just know, 30 minutes after you guys walked out the door, if you stayed till the end, the fire alarm goes off. We have to evacuate the building. The entire hotel has to evacuate the building. While we're standing out there in the pressure, somebody goes into like a seizure fit. So now there's ambulances coming all over the place. In the just fire department, a pipe burst downstairs. So there was no fire or nothing like that.
Yeah.
But a pipe burst in the parking lot area or in the parking garage and forced us all to evacuate. Apparently the system was put in before anybody that currently worked at the hotel was there. So it took over 24 hours or about 24. It was like forever for them to shut off. Like the alarm was off, the sound, but there was just constantly blinking strobe lights in every single room in the hotel constantly throughout the next 24 hours. But we made the best of it. We were up at, it was 2:30 in the morning at that time. So we got a pizza delivered to a stoop outside the hotel.
Yep.
And we were just sitting there on the street in New York City eating pizza. Easily the most New York City thing that I think could have possibly happened.
Yeah.
Just to be sitting on a stoop at 2:30 a.m. and have a pizza delivery guy walk up to me and hand me my pie.
Which by the way, Bob and I directed over to you guys because Bob and I went out and looked for our own food, and then we got turned back and we randomly walked into the pizza guy. We're like, "Are you bringing that pizza to that hotel?" He's like, "Yeah." We're like, "Who's it for?" And he's like, "I don't know." I'm like, they're like, "Is it room such and such?" And they're like, "Yeah." Like, we know where they are. We'll bring them to you.
Follow me. I get to eat this, so hurry up, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like as they were like not willing to wait for the pizza, they were like going to find a Popeyes that closed 3 hours ago or something like that. So they were just gonna walk around New York City to find food. I was just standing still waiting for the pizza guy to show up.
Yeah.
And it worked out. And honestly, I've got to say, best pizza we had all weekend.
Amazing
easily.
Pizza.
Oh,
absolutely
super good.
Fantastic pizza.
Yeah, Stoop Pizza is best pizza.
I almost want to go back to that hotel again just to eat Stoop Pizza.
Just to wait until 2:00 in the morning and order a pizza. It's the whole trip.
Order it right to the Stoop. But yeah, so that happened. It was the fire alarm part was awful, but I guess it's worth it because we're going to be telling the story for forever.
Yeah, it was like the defining moment of the trip. As frustrating as it was while it was happening, it was the whole story of the trip, in a nutshell. And just absolutely great. And the whole time too, it was like, what a better way to like, there wasn't really any awkwardness with Bob and Andres. I mean, we've hung out with them so much and everything like that.
And I've met them in real life before too.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forget that. I haven't. So it was, but what a better way to just kind of like bond with people and just, just ingratiate your friendship with people than to just have ridiculousness and just sleep deprivation and just anything that could happen that would make you better friends with somebody happened that night for sure.
And it was funny because I was sleepy. I went upstairs earlier, fell asleep. The alarm goes off and I come down and I'm like, "You guys pulled the fire alarm, didn't you?" I thought you guys did this. They're like, no. There's the pipe over there.
We didn't pull the fire alarm, but we took an axe to that pipe.
Yeah, we
over
did
there.
definitely hack that pipe up. I'm like, but yeah, so that was great. That was pretty much the whole weekend all summed up. And then Saturday was the finale, the final day. It was great. It was another day for me where I waited in line for 2 hours at the pop-up store, but that was great. It is a whole like I took a video of the line at one point, and I think the video I took was like ended up being like half of what the full line ended up being.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane. The number of people that showed up to that, the number of people who were like NYXL fans, and just like all sorts of crazy stuff. Actually, it was funny. Nicole Carpenter, who is a writer for Esports and also an ATP alumnus, I saw her while I was waiting in line, and she interviewed a person behind me who ended up being, who I found out was a High Noon podcast fan. So shout outs, Austin, I believe, if you're listening. But yeah, man, it was really cool. She actually shout outs to her too. She did the interview that she did with him and some other people in line was about that article actually came out today. You can check it out over at Esports. Bare Hands asked, did I get one of those Levi's jackets? Unfortunately, no, but also even if so when I got there, all they had was extra small left, which surprise, I'm not fitting in an extra small. And also those jackets were $300, so that was a hard pass. Also, I don't like jean jacket. Like man, if it was something else I would feel bad about not getting it, maybe.
If it was 1996 though, it would have been so in style.
I just like if we went like 30 miles north, it would be in style. That's like the Canadian tuxedo, isn't it?
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, $300 like ironic jean jacket. I just can't pull. I just couldn't do it. Also, they only had extra small, so I didn't have a choice. I'm actually kind of glad that, because if they had like a 2X or a 3X left, I would have really had to think long and hard, and then looked at my account and realized I couldn't buy one, and then felt bad about not getting one. Now I just am like, never had the chance. Literally never had the chance. So.
But yeah, after the actual match itself, we got to go hang out with Taco, who, I mean, you guys know Taco by now if you listen to this show. You know, from Overwatch Score, he does the All Things Considered show that we talk about in the beginning.
ATP
so we got to, ATP champion actually, as well. So yeah, we got to hang out with him. He took us around the city a little bit. He used to live like within like 10 minutes of the arena in the past. So he knew the area very well. We met him up at a German bar. Then we went to a German restaurant, but they didn't have air conditioning. And then we just like stumbled into this random restaurant, which was honestly amazing. Like, considering that it was just we just walked into a random place.
Do you have 9 seats? No. Okay. Hey, do you have 9 seats? No. Okay. Hey, do you have 9 seats? Yeah, we'll set your table now. Okay, we'll walk over. Like, that's literally what happened.
Yeah. So just great to get to meet him and his girlfriend as well. They were phenomenal. Hosts and tour guides as well around the city a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of got to have that nice sit down meal in New York that I wanted to have. So I was really grateful to them for showing us around and helping us find an area and a place to go to.
Yeah, and I know that you don't want to be reminded of this, but those spicy pickles, though.
Oh my God, I would never. those pickles will haunt me to the end of my days. I love spicy food. And yeah, the restaurant just had these pickles that like changed my life. I'll never look at pickles the same again. I don't think I can just eat a regular dill pickle ever again because it will just be a disappointment. It was so spicy. It was crazy. I loved it. Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up.
I was
getting hungry. As soon as we started talking about stew pizza, I got hungry, and now you've just pushed it over the top. My mouth's watering. I can't talk, so take over.
It's okay. We're just about done anyway. I think that's the extent of the kind of the trip. There's some other stuff, but that's for the people that were there only. So the next big thing is obviously going to be BlizzCon, hoping to basically run it back. Like, let's have something awesome. It's really hard. It's not going to be as easy to do a meetup at BlizzCon At least not in the same capacity, just because of how everything is laid out and how saturated everything is. Like, we would have to. It's a maybe. We might be able to do something.
Is Con Before the Storm a go? That got funded, everything it needed?
That's happening, yeah.
Okay.
We'll be there.
Well, yeah, maybe that'll be the best opportunity. If you do want to meet us, that is certainly going to be the best opportunity to get to say hello and make sure you stop by. So plan to be there for the day before for Con Before the Storm.
Yeah. And Bare Hands brings up a very good point that if you're at BlizzCon, just go to the Hilton lobby and you will meet literally every single person, because that's where everyone is. So definitely check that out. Although maybe this isn't supposed to be public information, but I consider that that's a freshman bar is what I'll call it. That's a freshman meetup. But yeah, every single person will go through those doors at some point in time, and you will get deadened to the fact that you're Bare Hands is like, cut it, don't tell people. You're about to give away. I'm not giving away anything. I'm just saying that the Hilton is it's a freshman bar, which if it's your first time, then go there, because you got to go there. I did. I'm not giving away any secrets. But yeah, definitely, I'll be at the Hilton. Okay, don't worry.
Noob.
Bare Hands is like calling my personal phone, like, I will shut your internet off. Don't tell people the secrets. But yeah, so we'll definitely get something going. Honestly, it's probably not going to be as cool as the meetup we had here, just because of how BlizzCon is. But yeah. We're gonna hope to do something just as cool and crazy for BlizzCon, and hopefully we'll be able to get you even more content. But that's gonna be a wrap. Any last words on the weekend or the trip or anything?
No, my voice is starting to go away again, so it's definitely a great time to call it. Just like, again, we can't thank you guys enough. Everybody that came to the meetup made that such an amazing time. Mm-hmm. It really was like the cherry on top of a phenomenal weekend that for me was long awaited. I love live sporting events. Mm-hmm. You know, I can go watch any sport or anything live because of the excitement, and to cap it off to be something I was so invested in and so interested in. And everything like that. I had very high expectations for this event, and they all were exceeded by a large margin. And that was in large part due to, like I said, the people at the meetup, Blizzard, Five Deadly Venoms, everybody that we've talked about today. Can't thank you guys enough. Everybody we got to meet, everybody we got to interview. Thank you all so much. Really, really appreciate it. And like Blevin said, can't wait to roll it all back. I haven't checked my bank account since I got to New York. I'm terrified to, but we will literally go bankrupt to make it to BlizzCon anyways, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it is definitely going to happen. But that is going to be it, guys and gals. Thanks everyone for watching. This was just an amazing experience. We're going to be we're going to be right back into the swing of things for content coming up. Regular episode next week. There's going to be an ATP next week. I don't have any confirmation on guests yet, but don't worry, it will be happening. People are chomping at the bit. I've had like people come into my random like Realm Royale stream like, hey, is there on the payload this week? That's when I know that that's something that people want. So we're definitely going to be getting that. But I think that is actually it. So for Deathblow, for everyone that we met at the Overwatch League Grand Finals, for everyone that helped us out on the way there and helped us get invited, we thank you. I am the Blevins, and remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now guides my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Okay, if you want to know where to go, the really cool people at BlizzCon hang out at